Welcome back, wannabes and creators, to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that demystifies business for artists. And today, I have Sebastian Jones on the program, CEO and founder of Stranger Comics, and also the architect of their amazing Asunda empire and universe. As he says, he wants to make the Marvel of fantasy comics, an amazing, incredible shared universe of fantasy comics. And I had him on the show to talk about it, how he is so amazing at shows, how he's so great at publicity, and how he's grown his company so massively in such a short amount of time. Before we get into it, I want to invite you to our free Facebook group, Authors and Creators Making Money Selling Books. It's I'm going to say promo limited Facebook group because you can do some promo on Tuesdays and Fridays, but pretty much no promo, all support Facebook group to help creators and authors make more money selling books. And you can get to it free by heading over to writingandsellingcommunity.com. All right, now that that's over, let's get on with the show. Take it away, Seb. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
I think the first thing that comes to me is my son. And he's hitting this age where he's 12 and he's in this bizarre kind of voice cracking period in his life where I'm passionate about making sure he's on the right path and doing the right things. And maybe because it's been Father's Day, it's the first thing that comes to mind. Outside of family, I would say, seeing the look. This might sound cheesy, but honestly, seeing the look on kids' faces when they come to my booth and pick up my comics and just seeing their reaction, oh wow, that's me in a comic, or that's I love just seeing that reaction, especially from really young folks and from grandparents. I think it's I think that's just seeing if we can. I'm passionate about planting seeds, I guess, and seeing them come to fruition.
Well, I would say that has to be a passion for you because you have this universe that you created planting seeds like more than 20 years ago now.
Yeah, getting on 30, it's crazy.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of the world, about Stranger Comics for people that may not know about it?
Sure, yeah. Let's see, I was always been an uber nerd, playing D&D and painting miniatures and Warhammer since I was, I think, 8 years old. I'm 43 now, with like the old lead miniatures. I literally remember the first night painting my first figure. I can't remember what happened yesterday, but 30 years ago, no problem. And when I was doing that, from a young age, I started, I guess, creating a universe, a fantasy universe, big into Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and that style of fantasy, swords and sorcery and whatnot. And just being a dungeon master, playing the games, I kind of wanted to create my own world, but try and make it big, a world that I could spend my whole life exploring myself, I guess, and make it very culturally inclusive. So you had your Africa, you had your, different places in Europe, you had, different places in Asia, and also make a world that everyone could kind of see themselves represented, with the cool guys. Like, in Lord of the Rings, the elves were the cool guys and they were the most beautiful, but they were only fair and they only felt like, they were in one or two locations. Where I wanted to create a world that, in a snapshot, if you're an elf from your Ujoa, you're black. If you're an elf from Hudafang, you're pale. You're white, and I kind of felt like when I'd read some fantasy novels, it literally felt like, okay, we're off to see the elves, and it was a day's ride, and there they were. They lived in the forest, and it's like that felt very myopic and distilled, and it got samey. It got very, very familiar. Some of those tropes became very, very. I think folks that grow up on that kind of material and get nostalgic, and it gets a little formulaic. And so I wanted to create something that, if you can see migration patterns, you can see different types of elves, and within those different types of elves representing our world. So if you're a kid, and you're a black or brown or Asian kid or whatever, and you want to play D&D, or you want to read a book that represents you, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm just the human, or in a lot of these books' terms, the bad guy. It's just I wanted to create something that kind of represented everyone in a authentic way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think your universe, Asunda, right? I'm saying that right? Okay.
You are, yeah.
I wanted to make sure, because I always worry that I'm saying the names of things wrong. Feels both real, familiar, and also unique at the same time. Like I can immediately look at the characters and be like, oh, I kind of understand like what to expect from this character, or like what I should expect. So when you do something that's expected, I'm like, okay, well, that kind of falls in this realm. But you also do these very unexpected things in the universe too, kind of like simultaneously, like affirming conventions and then completely turning them on their head.
Right. God, no, you pick up on that. That's really cool. Well, I feel, sometimes when we do fantasy stuff, again, it's this big kind of stuff that we're used to, right? So my whole goal for doing fantasy stories were to do it in, I don't know, claustrophobic storytelling, focusing on character, focusing on relationships, on vengeance, on salvation, on, like, I love Scorsese, I love Sergio Leone, to Spike Lee, to the, great storytelling. And if you can tell, I guess, everyday relatable stories and make them a metaphor for something bigger that we all kind of want out of life, that, to be a better man, a better father, a better mother, a better wife, a better husband. And you can tell those stories in a savage but elegant framework that happens to be within a very real, relatable kind of world. Then I think then we can relate to the characters. And then it's like watching it's like watching a great murder mystery, like, set in Brooklyn or set in London or wherever. Go, oh, I can, these feel familiar. Now we've got the Games of Throneses and the Lord of the Ringsies and all these various things. There's some familiarities there. Okay, cool. There doesn't need to be any explaining. Like, all right, fuck it. We're in a world. Cool. Perfect. And the fact that I'm spending 30 years creating it is very baked. So it should automatically, hopefully, feel a little like home. But then, like a murder mystery, you're going along a journey, and then you're hitting, these twists and these turns and these plot points and so on. And hopefully then at the end of the day, it's just great, good story, a good read. And the characters, though, I really wanted to make them not out of touch, make their emotional journeys very relatable for us.
Yeah, I love the worlds of fantasy novels, but I can't say that I'm a huge fan of reading them, because what normally happens is, I love character studies. That's like the kind of books that I like, something that's very focused on one person. And I find most fantasy novels, when you spend, especially as long as you have building a world, they sort of get this idea that they need to talk about all of this world that they built. And you're like, okay, here's 45 pages of a song of like this character, of like the backstory in the world, and you're like, this does not move a plot forward. And what I find so unique about your universe is, though you spent 20 years making it, and I'll be honest, when Josh told me about this, I was like, oh Christ, this is another big ass fantasy world. I'm gonna have to like listen to like 500 pages of just to like get one intelligent story of like 50 pages out of. But I bought Untamed, and I was like very pleasantly surprised that it was really a very focused, singular story about like one character trying to solve a goal, which I mean, I'm not saying I've read every fantasy story in the world, but I've read a lot, and that is a very uncommon perspective in fantasy novels.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. I think it's just happenstance. Just growing up watching so much of those spaghetti westerns and those old samurai movies, and just old movies in general. I love old movies. Just you know, Hitchcock. I mean, just good story stuff. And then being just an uber nerd, playing a lot of D&D and creating a world. And then, you know, and then it's funny. I wrote a giant script, right? I wrote like this 300-page epic script, which you probably would have hated then. It was very, world stuff. And a producer friend of mine read it and said, "This is actually really fucking great, but it's completely unproducible. No one will ever make this. It's too huge." And I think the only 300-page script he'd heard of was Ben-Hur and good luck kind of thing. And he said, try and try and think of doing something different. And it hit me. It's funny. I was rocking my newborn at the time, my son, to sleep, and 10 minutes in, I just had a pen and a paper and wrote, "I'm a bad man. I'll make a deal with the devil to become a better father. I walk into the town, day 1. This happens. Day 2, this happens." And then after literally, I don't know, 10 minutes, it feels like, maybe half an hour, but maybe it feels like 10 minutes. I took a step back and had 4 pages. It was of a 7-day story of a man coming back from the dead. And he's got 7 days to, basically save his wife and family's soul, and at what cost to him, and et cetera, et cetera. And when he meets a little girl, can she become his salvation, and so on. And so I took a step back. I was like, holy shit, this is kind of a rad story. And I'll set it in my world. And literally that was the origin of the Untamed. And about a week later, I'd written a 100-page movie script. It just poured out of me. And of course it went through, loads and loads of different drafts, but the world was already so familiar, and the story was so personal, and had those wonderful things that I think real simple storytelling, a vengeance story called Vengeance to Redemption, but then something that hopefully men could go, oh yeah, I want to be a better bloke. Yeah, I want to be a better dad. I can always be a better man. And for women, there was, women want men to be better fathers as well, and the romance elements and so on. So, and then you added the extra element that the salvation comes in the form of a young half elf mixed black, teenage girl. Folks who had grown up on Harry Potter and want a character to kind of grow up and blossom with. She was that, as I say in the script, the glowing light in the gloom. She was the light that will light not only hopefully his path, but light up the rest of the world and wake up the rest of the world as she grows up and she becomes our Luke Skywalker. So again, it was just like planting seeds, it's like planting seeds,
What was amazing about that is that when you read the story, like, Niobe has an important plot point in Untamed, but you don't spend an inordinate amount of time with her. Yes. Like, you don't say, well, this is what the next story is going to be. This is where we're going next, so let us spend 500 things talking about Luke Skywalker. When I found out that the next piece was Niobe, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But, like, I wanted to learn more about Niobe, but you didn't make it a point to, like, shine this massive light that she was going to be the main like the main driving protagonist in at least the first part of your universe.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely the goal. I really, I think sometimes, yeah, it's like you say, you can spend your time spelling out the world, spelling out, here's our hero. Even the stranger is the freaking stranger and he just wears a cloak, just, I think it's too much. I don't know. I like to be a bit of a counterbalance to pop culture, like big explosions, airbrush effects, fake English accents, just big and loud and big and loud. And then I think you can find the moments that we all love in the quietness. And for Niobe and the stranger and the Untamed, the hero of the story is of the Untamed is the stranger, is the man. And it hopefully lets us know, yes, we can be better men and better fathers, and can we make those right decisions. But for the world and beyond, the hero will be the girl. And it's because this guy did not fulfill the devil's deal and kill her, right? If he did, the world would become a much more grim place. And for me, that's kind of another seed planty kind of thing for dudes. Like, hey guys, our kids are one step away from being great and saving our sorry asses. So do the right fucking thing. And because of him, it allows her to breathe literally and figuratively and become who at some point she's meant to be, hopefully.
What I love about this world is you let the reader have the epiphany. Like, you don't push these things on them. Like, all of these things make a lot of sense when you're telling them now as you're analyzing it.
Yes.
But in the story, there's no dialogue like you are the hope for the rest of the world. You have to, you as the reader have to have this epiphany. And I keep pounding on all of these things so much because most of our stuff is a lot about business, but this is some brilliant maybe even subconscious business strategy, because like you're really focused on like, I know you're very focused on like the bottom line and the money and all the stuff that you're doing and like making sure you're making good business decisions to grow the company.
Sure.
But the stories are the things that really matter, and that's the thing that's really connecting. And it would have been very tempting, I would think, if you're talking about like building a quote unquote universe like the Marvel universe, to do another stranger story, considering the name of the company is Stranger Comics.
Sure.
To just continue that line and make him the hero. But it feels like it was like, well, his story is over for now, maybe not forever, but for now, and now we're going to splinter this other piece off, which, I always loved from people like Stephen King, Christopher Moore, Terry Pratchett, where, like, if you read their stories, they're pretty standalone. Like, some of them connect, but a lot of them connect in the same town or happen over the same time, and you see the same events happening, but with very different characters. So you as the reader are learning more about the universe the more you read and the more committed you are. But as a new entry point, you can almost pick up any story and enjoy that singularly, and then go, I wonder what else there is. Oh, that Niobe character from Untamed, or Dusu from these stories are interesting in and of themselves, and now I want to learn more about the universe.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely the goal. It's funny. There's some readers that give me crappy reviews because they say they don't have the patience, and I'm like, cool. No, hey, no problem. Then this isn't. If you want to know everything by page 6. Then this, my stuff isn't for you. There's tons of other comics that do that, hardcore. Even filmmakers, when they wanted to make my stuff, they said, okay, by page 6, there needs to be a killing, there needs to be an explosion, there needs to be this. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Go and find somebody else, and it's just not me. I like the slow reveal. So, I met a guy named Terrence, and you know him now. Real tall guy. He came to a booth at a booth of mine at New York Comic Con. It's a funny story. So he has a friend named Crystal, and she came to one of my panels at Rose City Comic Con. And I do a little thing at the beginning of my panels where I ask people to describe themselves in a poetic way. And I give them I say, I am a snowflake in Stockholm, but it's July. That's how I describe myself. And so after the convention, about 20 guys and gals gathered around me, and she did her piece, and everyone voted for hers as the best. So they come to the booth, I give her a free book and discounts for everyone else brave enough to say their poem. And so Terrence comes to this booth in New York, and he said, "Oh, my friend Crystal came to your panel. She loved it. She got a bunch of your stuff. Loves it. Big fan of yours. I like to pick up your kids' book, I Am Mixed, for my niece and nephews." I'm like, "Oh, great. Awesome." And he goes, "Oh, I'll try one of your Dusu comics." Cool. He came back the following day and said, "I'd like to buy everything you have on the table." And bought every book that we had, every art print we had. And then a few months later came to Chicago and said, "Can I cosplay one of your characters, Dusu?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem, bro." So then he came as Dusu. His cosplay was so authentic and incredible, and in a loincloth, and just 6'6" hunk of man. And then we became great friends, and then he actually became a bit of a partner in the company. So all that to say is that's all from planting seeds. And what he said is the same as what you are, is it was the story. And obviously he's a black dude, and he's like, representation matters so much to him. And a lot of times, you get these very pandery type comics that it's like one and done and so on with some of the bigger companies. There are some other great independents out there really, making, great strides in representation and great stories and so on, and great art. But I guess he was really taken with what we were doing. And he said something, all that to say is, he said, when you read one of your books, you can't be on Facebook or have the TV on in the background. You can't be at an airport reading it. You can't be distracted. He said, because you have all these seeds that you're planting, all these Easter eggs to find, that it might be in the art, and it might be in a real simple reference point piece of dialogue that you go, "Oh shit, this is connected to this," and you read it again and suddenly it has another meaning. And he said, so the stuff that we have is not going to be for everyone. It's, a lot of people nowadays, you got movies, you got, what frickin' filter are you going to put on your Snapchat again? A dog, or are you a dog face today? You're just bombarded with so much media and so much self-absorbed, entitled media. Like, fucking look at me, everybody, again and again. Phones become cameras that show off, whatever. It's so for me, I just want to cut against that grain completely. And I guess it referenced back to your original point. It's what are you passionate about? And I think it's planting seeds. I'm not ever going to be that dude that, is going to be the big explosion guy unless it's the right time for the big explosion. Because otherwise you're desensitized, right? I mean, to me, I see so many of these movies and they look incredible, but my imagination's pretty fucking rocking. So I'm already imagining something incredible. So unless I care about the character and the story, if you give me explosion after explosion and quick gag after quick gag, I'm just bored.
Yeah, well, what's great, and I want to unpack something that you talked about, which was basically you're making the books that you want, but you understand that, not everybody is going to buy them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been at your table just at Phoenix, and it certainly looks like everyone's going to buy your book from like some of the times that there's so many people around, but again, like I see people on my own Facebook feed that are doing superhero stuff, and they love superhero stuff, and I'm like, cool, man, that's great. Like that is your audience. I am never going to capture that audience. I will never. It will never ever happen. Not necessarily because I can't write a competent superhero comic,
Sure.
in the right setting. But like, that's not where I want to spend my time, focus, energy, money. And that's not even the audience I want to talk to. Like, when people come up and talk to me about Marvel or DC, I look like a deer caught in the headlights.
Right.
I was at a conference this weekend, and one of the people that was working it had on Wonder Woman pants. And I was talking about how I'm going to Vegas this weekend for Vegas Comic-Con. And she's like, oh, she starts talking about Wonder Woman. I just like start slowly backing away. Like, I'm sorry that you associated like my reference of Wonder Woman with the fact that you're wearing those pants and that they look cool, with the fact that I'm going to go to the show, with the fact that I read DC Comics. Because like,
Sure.
that's not me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the people that go and buy DC Comics all the
Sure.
time. Like, that's cool. Like, but what's great about the universe and the world that we live in is that like, there's something for all of the people, and you've never been more likely to be able to find something that you love. You
Yes.
know, in the
True.
50s, you know, you only had three options. And so, like, yeah, the big media companies had the whole share because they were three options. And now you don't have three options. You have thousands of options, which is terrible for those big companies that, like are making the same thing they made 30 years ago.
Right.
Because they're now like, well, I never liked this thing. I always wanted what Stranger Comics or Wannabe Press or like Catalyst Prime from Lions Forge is doing, or any of those other companies.
Sure.
I always wanted that. So that's where I'm going now,
Yes.
because I can now get it. And as long as you're okay with the fact that, you know, I've always said, I know I'm not for everybody, so my goal is to find the right person as soon as humanly possible, and make sure the wrong person just keeps walking as soon as possible. Like, if I can make those two things happen, and then spend my time focusing on like those people in the middle who are on the fence, who don't
Sure.
know if they are amazing, who don't know if they're the Terrence person, and so they buy like one thing and test it out, but then figure out that
Yes.
it's amazing,
Sure.
or someone who's kind of on the fence and realizes that like it's not their thing by opening it up. If I can just spend that time like figuring those people out, my life is going to be way better, because the sooner I can just find those people who are going to be cosplaying as my stuff or talking about it or buying it, or even if they don't buy it, just connecting with it and like getting your point of view, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. The way I view cons, or just, you know, kind of that business in general, is if a kid is going to a convention, you know, you only have so much money in your bank account when you're buying comics, right? And you go, okay, I'm going to a con, or I'm going to the comic shop. I got $4, or I got $20 in my pocket, or $100, whatever that number is. And most fans already know what they're buying. They already know they're going to buy Batman. They already know they're going to buy Spider-Man. All these kind of comics and IP that they've grown up with. And for me, I go, wow, that kid is going to, if he comes to my booth or goes into the store and maybe grabs one of my comics, he or she is going to potentially spend their money on me instead. And so I take that as a massive responsibility to say, well, shit, I better put out the best stuff I can, you know, because $4 at any time, especially now, is a lot of money. So I want that person to have the best experience they can with the art and the writing and the story and the world and the relatability and so on, as humanly possible. So that, yeah, I am trying to build a fantasy kind of, you know, what Marvel did for the superhero, I want to do for fantasy and comics. So I want that kid to come back and go, yo, that's amazing. Do you have what, you know, can I get, oh, this connects. Oh, can I get the sequel? Can I get the other stuff? And enjoy it. And then in the markets, again, I think so many times I love superhero stuff. I grew up on superhero stuff as well. We as people are nostalgic and we want to do the things that we love. And so if you grow up reading, you know, Spider-Man and Captain America and Black Panther and all this stuff, you want to do your own superhero version of it. And what I wanted to do is go, okay, I also love fantasy novels, but I've never really had experienced the, you know, hey, I can come back each month or bi-monthly, you know, and, you know, for independent or a little longer, But I can come back and continually read and experience the Wolverine of fantasy, the Batman of fantasy, the Storm of fantasy, whoever, right? But take it one step further and again, make these characters real, gray area, not, I think that's why I always loved the Hulk and I always loved Wolverine, because I always loved some of the either very, very extreme characters like a Doctor Doom, or I love the Hulk or Wolverine, the more nuanced characters. Black Panther, just, and can we apply that to fantasy and then just really ramp it up and reflect our own society. So with me, I wanted to capture markets that haven't been tapped into. So, okay, cool. Fantasy. They're outside of, I think CrossGen had it for a little while, but outside of, Conan, the two different Red Sonjas, one with a J, one with a Y, the Pathfinder comics. I want that to, strike the hammer on the anvil and say, that's our market. Guys, if you love fantasy, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, you love that stuff, then come and check out Stranger Comics' world. And then also being someone who's mixed, person of color, it really was, it's not just important, it's everything for me to have a world that truly, truly reflects our own. So, it's smart business. Folks aren't represented a lot out there, in both women and people of color and so on. But also it's just fucking needed. So it has been not completely uncommon now and again for young black girls to come to our booth at a con and scream like fucking crazy, and sometimes even cry, especially some of the grandparents that see these comics that we're doing and we're putting out, not to cash in because it's Black History Month or it seems cool or in vogue or whatever. Oh, suddenly it's making money. No, because it comes from a real authentic place that these characters hopefully should feel and breathe from a place of realism.
Right, and I love that, and I love that it's never like some companies that are very high on representation or get the representation bug. They spend their entire time marketing that, like, hey, look at the new black superhero or the plus sized superhero or this character. And I've never, besides the fact that you talk about Naomi being written by starring, and then the first, like, basically
Naomi's the first ever nationally distributed comic with a black female author, artist, and hero in the history of comics, which is kind of crazy. Because somebody was telling me the other day that Marvel and DC, one of them had hired 2 black female writers in their entire history, and the other had hired 0 before Naomi came along.
Right. So for like, you say that, but aside from that, like, you're not pushing this sort of representation in our face, which to me, again, I really, as a middle-class white male, have very little, like, to be able to speak about this topic, like, objectively, or right, like, in an intelligent way. But to me, my favorite parts about representation is when they just exist in the universe, and you're like, oh, that's a character. Oh, she is black. Yeah, I guess she's black too. And then, like, oh, look at look at all these characters who just look like humanity, or like they look like they would all be around together, instead of like, this is the dark elf city and the elf city and the dwarf city. It's like these all people exist in this, like, town together, and it's not a big fucking deal.
Right. We definitely, the world that we've got us under is huge. I try to make it as big as Earth, so there'll always be room to explore. I think, when the greats created, like, Gotham and Metropolis and all this kind of stuff, it reflected the era and the times. But after a while, how many freaking superheroes worldwide live in, in one tiny place? Um, so I wanted, after I'm dead, hopefully, like there'll be other creators if it's, things go well for Stranger, still writing in the world of Asunder, and that would be awesome. And there's just more stuff for everyone to explore. That'd be just wonderful.
For sure. I want to talk about one thing before.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you have to say about the rest of this topic, but I want to just touch on one thing before I forget about it.
Sure.
You had talked about people going into the store to buy your comic and taking that responsibility, but I think there's an even more important mindset thing that goes on at shows and at stores, which is if you can keep showing up in these people's minds. If people have $30 and they've already allocated that $30, but you keep showing up, you move up their charts of things that they like, and eventually things are going to fall off, or you'll go from the 30th thing that they want to the third. And I've seen that happen hundreds of times where I've seen somebody for years and they're finally like, okay, I'm ready to buy this, and also I'll buy everything else on your table. Do you get that as well?
I do. Yeah, it's like even Phoenix. It was our second year at Phoenix, and it is kind of, you for our repeat customers. I had guys going like, "Dude, I just bought the first issue last year, and I was so mad, and that I only got the first issue. I should have listened to you. I like everything else." To I got everything you had on the table last year. What else do you have? I'm obsessed. One girl came. She's like, I got $100 for the whole weekend, and I'm only spending my $100 at your booth because you have my favorite stuff. And and to the other guys who said, I saw you last year, and your booth looked great, but I thought, maybe, I'd already, figured out what I was going to buy, but seeing you again, just seeing the new stuff that you have, like, I want to try it out, and maybe they'll spend 30, or maybe they'll spend 60, or they'll, just spend 20, and then next year they'll move into that next category, hopefully, if they liked it. And so far, I don't really think I've had any outside of the odd online keyboard warrior critic who has said, the odd naysay. I haven't had anyone at a booth at a con come up and go, yeah, dude, I read it. It was okay. I've never had anything like that. So I feel like we're doing something good. Usually I've had people come back going, oh my God, The Untamed's the best graphic novel fantasy thing, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, you haven't got it. You have to get it. Do you have anything else? I mean, when you see that, you think, fuck, I must be doing something right. That's nice. Cause as you know, being independent, it's grueling work, and there's no sleep. And so to hear someone really, really dig your stuff, to stop and smell the roses just for a moment, to think, wow, okay, that's great. When you're home alone and pen on paper going, I don't know if this shit's any good, and when the art is late, or it's not exactly how you pictured it, or you're having arguments, or your artist turns into something better than what you pictured, and whatever. Just the process is so brutal. If you really want to make the best stuff you can, for those little moments, it is worth it when someone's just freaking out, and I'm like, wow, okay, all the time spent away from my family, these are the moments to see, well, that's hopefully it's kind of, there's the counterpoint. Hopefully it's doing its job, at least, that I'm doing something right.
Okay, so I want to talk about this massive growth that you've had in the past couple of years. If you can go back and attribute it to a couple of things, I'm not going to say like 3 things or 5 things or 1 thing or however many things that you think are like really attributed to. We were talking about before you went on we went on the air where me and you, like, I remember when you had Untamed. I remember when Josh was talking about like this company called Stranger Comics, and me going, "Oh, that sounds cool." And now, like you're getting 10 by 20s with massive booths at all of these amazing conventions. If you could go back and attribute it to a couple of things, like what would you tell somebody to start doing themselves, or what would you tell yourself to go back and do more of to help that growth explode even faster?
That's a good question. I think probably don't spread myself as thin. Focus on one or two things and make that the best you can. It's like when I used to do, a little bit of fighting and martial arts as a kid, and hearing I suck now, but hearing just some of the greats when they talk, I listened to Royce Gracie, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, and he was talking about working on his striking, and he said he'd rather perfect one strike than do everything else good kind of thing. Like, so he said, I enjoy the basics. I enjoy doing 1,000 leg kicks of one specific style of kick, as opposed to 100 of that, 100 of this, 100 of that. And then, so I think all that bollocks to say is, if I could go back, I would not try and do the kids' books at the same time as this comic, as this, as this, as this. To just zero in on one area and make that freaking awesome, and then do this area and make that awesome in a bit more of a streamlined way. I think back then, I think I did it more out of necessity. To try and just grow and bring income in, and deals presented themselves, so I had to jump on them. But even still, I say just be focused. Be focused on the one area of expertise the best. For me, it was fantasy, and being vulnerable and willing enough to try and be as raw with the storytelling as possible. My mum always says, write what you know. I know kids, and I'm mixed. I've, been through divorce, and, so I do kids books that focused on that. I grew up in loving certain styles of storytelling. So that's how I write. But not spread yourself too thin, too soon, too quickly. Plant your stake in the ground. I think of it like this, right? So when I used to go to clubs as a kid, the DJ would play, you go, okay, I'm just going to the hip hop club and all they play is hip hop. Or I'm going to the jazz club and all they play is jazz. I'm going to the reggae club, all they play is reggae. Nowadays, when you go to a club, the DJ is playing a bit of jazz, a bit of reggae, and a bit of hip hop. He's trying to please everybody. And fuck that noise, because at that point in the club in the evening, you'll have a group of folks that are happy for 20 minutes, another group that'll be happy for a different 20 minutes, and so on. You'd rather just dictate your own audience. So plant your stake in the ground and dictate the audience that you want to read your stuff. Kind of like what you were saying. Who's going to like your stuff, and that's fine. And there are going to be tons of people that don't, and that's fine too. But don't try and please everybody. That's don't try and do too much too soon, and don't try and please everybody, because that's going to be impossible. I've had because I do multicultural comics and kids books and shit, I've had death threats, you know what I mean? So to whatever. So you just, know that you can't please everybody, and I would think I would have remained more streamlined, because that would have saved me money too, build up my network following more, build up my social media following more, listen to my instincts more as well. As a part, it's really good getting advice from loads of people, but trust your own instincts. And then also listen to who's telling you advice, who's in your corner, who's telling you advice. Mum might say, great things to you because she's that kind of mother, or she might be the kind of mother that says your shit sucks because she'd rather you be a doctor, something with a more stable income. So whoever's giving you advice and whoever's talking to you when you first start out, try and hear everyone's criticism, take it in, and then know the person who's telling it and for what reason. And then trust your own instinct. Yeah. Focus, because this shit is expensive. Focus.
Yeah, and your instincts get better over time. What I like to say is, like, I always take all the advice. If someone is especially more successful is telling me advice, I'm going to take it and integrate it into a thing, and take the parts that are good and integrate it into my thought process, and then understand that of all the advice that you've given today, or I've given over years of doing this, or you've given over years, like, only a fraction of it will work for a fraction of the people. So maybe 10% of it will work for person A, another 10 will work for person B, and another 10 will work in person C. But so often, what I've learned over the years is to understand that no matter how many origin stories you listen to from creators or successful business people, everyone is different, and it's really hard to model. But what it's a lot easier to model is taking a lot of different data and parsing it out to the thing and knowing, like, okay, these are the 20 things that these people consistently say.
Yes.
Now I'm going to maybe try these 20 things a little bit and see if I like it, and then I'm going to pull the 4 things that work for me out of this 20.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember one friend of mine who read a script that I'd written, and, I dropped out of school pretty much when I was 17, or I just gave up on working, to be honest, and just didn't care less. Sorry, Mum, if you're listening. So a mate of mine reads a script of mine, and he had been to film school, and he ripped my script apart. And I think he just ripped it apart because he was just angry the fact that I'd happened to say, fuck it, I'm going to sit down and try and write a script. I don't know what I'm doing, But in the 3 hours he told me how shit it was and was enjoying kind of tearing it apart. He gave me one scene and said, oh, and this and this and this and this scene. And I thought, oh, that's really clever. Thanks. And I kind of wrote that down and just carried on listening to the rest of him berate me. And I should stick to my other job kind of thing. I think more than anything because he didn't want me to succeed. So yeah, in that 3 hours of him telling me how crap my stuff was, and me just having to listen to it, he gave me one little nugget of something that I was like, oh yeah, and I changed that scene and it made the script a lot better.
Right. And well, that's the nice thing about if you have 100 scenes and you talk to 100 people and they all give you like a great thing for each one scene, eventually you have like a great script, right?
Yeah, no, you just listen, just be, try and, we're sensitive, we're writers, we got egos and so on, and some days I can take it, and some days it's like, oh, that kind of sucked to hear someone just rag on my shit. But if you can listen, I think like that's the thing with everything nowadays, that's why we're trying to do at Stranger so much is listen. It's the quieter you are, the quiet moments. Even when I'm talking sometimes and I'm pitching at the conventions, people go, sorry, I can't hear you. And it's a bit of a hustle, and I start speaking even quieter so they come closer. And it's just a way to kind of tune out the noise, right? Just the stuff. And I think that's the way I apply my, I guess, myself to the writing or the stories and so on. So when the explosions do hit, or when I am loud and I got, no problem being loud, and suddenly turning it up and being super loud and having, 10, 20 people gather around while I do the pitch, it's fine. I'm not shy. It makes it that much more of an impact.
Right.
So, and it's the same with the storytelling to me again. And, you know, when you watch movies, you know, if I'm just bombarded with the oh wow explosion-y moments in story and just, and whatever, I'm just desensitized by the time I get to the finish line. By the time you give me the big finale battle, you know, that's why those old westerns were so clever, is it was all in the build-up, you know. I mean, it's so genius when you think about it. I was thinking about this last night, funnily enough, is it's just one bloody shot. It's not a punch-up. It's not a drawn-out shooting gun battle. It's a showdown that ends with one bang. So if you can hook your if you can hook your reader with the story and the narrative and the storytelling, the way you build up the tension to that one dramatic moment, that's what I would love to deliver. Like, oh my God, what the fuck is going to happen? This is so gripping, and then kaplow, you know, or kaplow when it is a big gun battle. Now I'm totally invested. That to me is everything.
Awesome. We got to work towards wrapping up, but I got to talk about one thing before we talk about the Kickstarter.
Yes.
The thing, you do a lot of things well, but the thing that I go, when I think of like Seb and Stranger, that I go, how the fuck does he do that? Is like how you're able to get so much coverage from like Vogue and Vanity Fair and these like amazing outlets. Could you talk a little bit about your publicity and PR process and like how early you start and all of that stuff to the build up of a launch?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I've been pretty lucky, you know, working with celebrities. I mean, that's, you know, it's funny, dude. Like, I act on TV commercials, right? And sometimes people are obsessed with the fact I'm just I act on TV commercials. They come to the booth and go, oh my God, I saw you in this commercial. Oh yeah, I'll buy it. Like, you know, people have an obsession with folks who are on television, celebrity, whatever, right? Like, I remember so I write with Amanda Stenberg. Sorry, I can't remember if we said that in the beginning, but I write with Amanda Stenberg, and she played Rue in the Hunger Games and has a movie that's just come out called Everything, Everything. Huge following. Super bright, super sweet girl, very pretty girl, very, very bright girl. And we're at the booth. If she's at the booth, I literally could be selling egg cups at my comic booth for $100, and they wouldn't blink an eye. So you take that kind of knowledge or reality to, you know, the press. And, you know, if, you know, back in the days in the beginning, like, and I worked with Garcelle Beauvais on the kids' books, and she has a good following, a great following, super beautiful woman, very bright, and is on TV a lot. And so they have the outreach to the publicist. So if you can work with a celebrity artist, you know, like, don't necessarily mean a celebrity on TV, but a known artist or a celebrity who's not in the comic field, which I think is always a smart move because it brings a certain level of breath of fresh air at a Comic-Con, or oh wow, kind of to a person who already might have an emotional connection. Like, Amanda was very smart for us because the folks who had seen Hunger Games, when her character died, it was a very emotionally charged moment. And so for young folks, it's going to have a certain kind of memory, right? I mean, for me, it was like, okay, I know my movies that had that ooh moment for me. So I knew that would be the case with her. So working with her was great on all those levels. And even if, you know, she goes off to other things, we never work again and blah, and so on, there'll be there's always this kind of visceral reaction for a fan at a booth. Now, as far as the big stuff, the Vogues and the Nerdists, the Geek and Sundries, it definitely helps having those attachments. It also helps if you've got a story and an angle, being the first of this, being the first of that. they're always going to want to have some measure of an angle. I mean, I've been turned down, dude, by tons of big press as well, that it's just not enough. Oh, you're not big enough. You're not famous enough. Oh, Amanda, yeah, maybe, and then, oh my God, yes, okay. So for me, I'm pretty aggressive with picking up the phone. If I can't get hold of my celebrity's publicist, or I can't afford them, or I can't afford a publicist, I will constantly reach out to a journalist who writes for one of those big magazines. I will cold call. And when they're ready to take my call, have my presentation ready, know what I'm going to say, and know what will make a great article for them. So, and then time it, if possible, for when I try and do one big piece of press right before I launch. So it's like, oh shit, that's coming in a couple of days, or that's coming tomorrow. Oh wait, oh fuck, I better get my money together. And then try and have all the other big press hit around the same time, just in the hopes it would suddenly go viral for a little bit, and then create a spike in my sales, whether it's a Kickstarter or a new release. But as far as, contacting Vogue, there's no, I'll be honest, it's only thanks to the fact that I managed to work with a celebrity, and having a having a great talking point, being the first at doing something obviously is a big help. Being able to talk from an authentic place, whatever it is a big help.
Yeah, but you didn't just go. So, yes, I know that like getting that big article in Vogue with Amanda and was that's like a big deal, and that's something that not everybody can do. But I think there are a couple of things that you can pull away from this. First, you didn't just try and launch go talk to Vogue in a Tuesday in November. You talked to them
right.
when her a couple of months, I would assume, before her major motion picture that was going wide, and you launched your campaign the day before that movie was going wide. And when you could call Vogue and Nerdist and all these places, you could say, hey, I know everybody else is going to be talking about everything. Yeah. I can get you in a different angle to talk about this comic, which was written by Amanda, and it's the first black artist, the first black writer, the first black hero, a female hero, protagonist, all done together, and you can put all of those things together and say, so let me ask you, would you rather have an angle that's different from every other angle that you can talk about everything, and Amanda and all of this other stuff when she's really going to be hot, or do you not want that?
Yeah, no, I think, it's funny. I mean, hindsight is always crazy. I think, it's like announcing at Comic-Con, right? Everyone wants to announce at Comic-Con because studios are going to be looking like, oh, what's coming out of Comic-Con? But announcing at Comic-Con, you have the possibility of getting completely swallowed. And I think when we announced Niobe around her movie amongst the Amanda fans, it got completely swallowed. Because everyone's just like, I must see her in a teeny romance film, and teen romance film, and oh my god, romance, movies, TV. Yet for the comic world and some of the mainstream media world, and also for some of the film and television producing world, looking at something hopefully beyond comics, or in addition to, that was the right move. So, you always have to think, what is your strategy for the moment? And, when we announced Niobe Shia's Life, the first comic series with Amanda, she didn't have a lot going on at the time, movie-wise. I don't think she had anything going on at the time, movie-wise. Maybe there was some stuff in the works, but it was great for her. Oh, she had and she did a video on cultural appropriation for school, and that went a bit viral. and which caught lightning in the bottle at the time. So people started looking at her, going, "Oh, I remember her from the Hunger Games. What's she got going on?" And then we capitalized on that in a really big way for the launch of She Is Life. But saying all that, yeah, no, and I totally get your point. I mean, even if you don't have the celebrities and if you don't have any of that other stuff, timing is everything. It's in knowing what you want the maximum result to be for you at that time, short, midterm, long term, right? So for me, I figured, yes, we might piggyback everything to the Amandla fans, depending on how much, she's able or allowed to promote during that movie time. And if she's not, and she doesn't, okay. But for our comic fans or just fans of fantasy or alternate media or, other stuff, it was perfect for us. Because it can be, oh, it's that girl from that movie.
Yeah, I mean, you see her in the video as you're like going to do that. You're watching the video, then you're like, oh shit, like she's like in the movie that just released this week. Like what?
Right.
Like how did that happen? And then like, so I totally get what you're saying. But
it's from an organic sense too, because if it was just her and she was the first in the video, I think it's just too. It takes away from also the authenticity of the project, like she is an integral part to Niobe, forget the media and the success and the visibility, but just, making how we made the book. So, yeah, that's me, that's her, there's Daryl, there's Ashley, there's a quick shot of Sheldon, there's Terrence, hey, there's the team. And I think if we just did Amanda, then it's just bullshit, And so I wanted to have her just chat very honestly about how she felt about the character and what it meant to her,
For sure. All right. So I could talk about this all day, but I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to make sure that we talk about the Niobe She Is Life hardcover, which if you're listening to this on Thursday when it launches, only has 2 days left.
Yes.
So can we talk a little bit about Niobe, She Is Life, the hardcover, She Is Death, some of the rewards that they can get, and why people should back it?
Yeah, no, you should back it because the shit's awesome and you'll love it. So Niobe, She Is Life is the first in a series. It's the hardcover is 4 issues. I wrote with Amanda Stenberg. Ashley A. Woods out of Chicago did the beautiful illustrations. Daryl May, who does all of our layouts, did the layouts. And, a lot of the concept art. The beauty of where we're at with the kicks. First off, the story is it's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast love story, threaded with murder and mystery that leads to all-out war about a young girl returning to her ancestors to find her faith. But where we're at right now is we might even by Thursday hit our final $50,000 stretch goal, which means you'll get a whole horde of free stuff from free J. art prints.
Yeah, so let's just go through. I'm going to go through. I have it pulled up right now.
A
Sheldon Mitchell mini litho.
Yeah.
And a Numinal.
Numinal temporary tattoo.
There we go. Jay Lee, Niobe bookmark.
Yep.
Powie Sin, temporary tattoo.
Exactly. Those are the gods. The more you read about the stuff, these are just cool, like god temp tattoos. The reversible dust jackets, foil inlay. More and more pages have been added to the back of the book as we've knocked down these stretch goals.
So I got 32 so far extra pages.
Yeah.
The temp inlay, you'll get Hand of the Devil. You'll have 6 of 12 trading cards. There's going to be a slipcase edition now for the add-on. Stranger Comics calendar for everyone that backs at $35 and up. And now, at $47,500, you actually get the full set of the 12 trading cards. And Do you want to talk about the $50,000 goal?
Yeah, we're less than $1,000 away. So it's called Birth of a Savior. There's another 32 pages of back matter, which will and a 52-page story of Morkamoa, who appears as kind of the bad dude in the She Is Life tale. A backstory 52-page comic, which Daryl and I wrote, that Daryl did all the pencils and inks on, of Niobe as an infant, Morkamoa hunting her down. So you'll be able to piece more and more of that stuff together. So it's a real big, beefy book for only $25.
Yeah, and that's what it says 96 extra pages.
Yeah, it's crazy. It'll be a beautiful, oversized hardcover, much like what we did with the Untamed that people seem to love. And you can get it on discount right now for only $25. And other stuff that you can get as add-ons is the Untamed hardcover, the Untamed comic sequel set, The Killing Floor, signed with Jay Lee, covers all 4 issues of the Untamed sequel. The Dusu Path, the Ancient, that is a hardcover. And what's great about this Kickstarter is all the benefits for Niobe will also be applied to the Dusu. So the foil and the dust jacket, the extra gallery pages, and so on. So you can get that as an add-on. You can get Niobe She Is Death, which is illustrated by Vampire Hunter D artist Sheldon Mitchell, who also does Erathune featuring Niobe where she's older, which is also another add-on. And Niobe She Is Death is where she becomes a badass bounty hunter hunting down sex traffickers and slave traders. It gets really gnarly. You can also get Niobe backpacks. You can get jewelry, chokers and earrings made by the guys who make the Lord of the Rings jewelry, Badali Jewelry, shout out to them. You can get original art by Jay Lee. You can get speaking roles in the comics. You can even get your head on a spike on the cover of a Jay Lee special edition variant.
So that's a lot of stuff. And I think if I remember that $25 also includes shipping, right?
No, shipping is a little bit more. I think it's like $5 extra for the US.
I mean, even for $30, 25 plus 30, I would say it's more than worth it. Of all the comics that I've ever bought in my whole life, Untamed, have not read Niobe. I'm waiting until the hardcover comes because I don't want to get it spoiled.
Okay.
But Untamed is one of my favorite, and on top of that, one of the most beautiful ones I've ever seen. Like,
well, thank you.
When Josh, because I know Josh, who also works with you for a long time. I've known Seb for about a year. When he showed me that book, I was like, "Fuck off!" Like, you didn't just people don't just make people don't just make independent comics that like are high-end hardcover with this kind of art. And he's like, "Well, we did," and I'm like, I need to go look at hardcovers now. And I ran off, and if you want to know who I basically ripped off their whole business model from about making beautiful hardcovers, Stranger Comics is responsible in no small part towards my desire to do exclusively hardcover. Pretty much. It's Humanoids, Magnetic Press, and Stranger Comics. And Stranger Comics is the only one that I read that I talked to that I was like, oh shit, it's actually doable. The pricing model can actually work. So if you don't want to pick up, if none of the other awesome stuff we talked about today makes you want to go and buy the book, maybe that will. It is a top 10. Untamed is one of the top 10 books I've probably ever read as a comic. Even if the story wasn't amazing and the art wasn't the best, some of the best art, the way that you guys use paneling and move the story forward in Untamed, and also in the little bits that I've seen on Niobe, is something that I've very rarely seen in any comic ever.
Wow, dude, that's got to be your Facebook post today. That's awesome. Thank you. That's really awesome.
Is there anything that we talked about that we didn't talk about that you would like to convey to the audience before we get out of here?
Just, you know, thank you. We're independent as hell, and this is honestly, that old adage, it really takes a village, and it does. So, I really appreciate all the love and support. It's how I put food on my kids' table. So,
Awesome. All right. So last question. You
yes,
can either a piece of advice you haven't given before, or the piece of advice you want people to remember leaving this podcast so that they can carry through to their own creative lives, and then where we can find you, and then we'll say goodbye.
awesome. So, I guess the best piece of advice that I can offer is, um, it might sound a little pedestrian, but it's true. When everyone else is sleeping, get to work.
I love it. That's awesome. That's a great thing to leave everyone with. All right, where can we go to find you online, including the link to the Niobe Kickstarter for anyone who's not sleeping and is going to back the day this launches?
Sure. So you can find me strangercomics.com. All of my social media handles are at strangercomics. And you can find the Niobe Kickstarter by going to Google and typing in Niobe Kickstarter.
Sounds good, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, Russell, thank you so much, bro. I really, really appreciate the love and support. Big time. Thank you so much.
So I hope you enjoyed that one with Sebastian Jones. If you did, please head on over to Kickstarter or their website or their social media and let him know how much he helped. And if you like this episode, please head on over to thebusinessofart.us/iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe today. Finally, if you are not a member of our Facebook group, Authors and Creators Making Money Selling Books, go on and head on over now. I am very dictatorial about the no promo policy, except on Tuesdays and Fridays, and it's all about helping each other make better books. And if that's something you want, this is the group for you. Head on over to writingandsellingcommunity.com and it will redirect you right to our free Facebook group today. Thanks a lot, wannabes and creators. I will see you next time.